Hello everyone and welcome to a special episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast we run over here on youtube.com/UC Campbell. And this one is a special episode again. Obviously we are not doing it live as we traditionally do. And it is going to be our review for WWE Survivor Series 2018, which is a show that, let's be fair with it, the matches were good. Booking was a little bit weird, but I think it was more or less because they didn't put certain narratives in there to kind of maybe put the seeds of the quote-unquote sweep, which wasn't a sweep, by the way. On that one, we will call out WWE on their BS on this one yet again. They were going for a sweep-style storyline, but due to certain events during the pre-show, they kind of ruined that at the beginning of the pre-show, or at least midway through the pre-show, whenever the match actually took place for the tag teams. So let's actually start off with that. It was the SmackDown tag teams going up against the Raw tag teams in what started off as not such a great match, but turned into a pretty good one. Eliminations were kind of coming and going pretty quickly, with the people you kind of expected to get eliminated rather quickly did. Cologne, Sanity. Unfortunately, they don't mean much of anything right now on SmackDown. With Sanity, the club got eliminated pretty quickly as well, which kind of was a downturn as well. As soon as we got down to 4 teams, it kind of actually turned into a pretty good match, with the B team and Heath Slater and Rhino getting eliminated really quickly over on the Raw side. Who else was there? Because I forget. Oh yeah, the Ascension also getting eliminated really quickly as well, to go along with it. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. that glare is getting very crazy on me, and I am not a big fan of it. That's a little better. That's a little bit better. As we as we kind of play along with this right on the fly to here today, even though we are doing local recording, not doing live, we might as well do everything kind of on the fly to go along with it, to maybe give it that feel. So when it came down to Chad Gable and the Revival to go up against the Usos and the New Day, this is where the match actually picked up, and picked up quite a bit. I do like Rude and Gable's new finisher, which is the net breaker into the moonsault into neck breaker. I actually do like that one. Chad Gable also doing a rolling chaos theory to Big E and pulling off a German suplex to him, and then he also pulls off a German suplex to one of the Usos out to the floor as they were doing kind of doing that spot where it's like one dive to the outside, then another dive to the outside, then another dive to the outside type bit. Of course, also Big E doing his very scary spear spot to go along with it. Eventually though, the New Day get rid of Chad Gable and Bobby Roode via the Midnight Hour, and then the Revival hits the Shatter Machine on Xavier Woods when he was going for the up, down, down elbow, and eliminated the New Day, which left it only being the Revival going up against the Usos, and they put on a pretty good match as well. It was pretty much towards the end, super kick party to the Revival, big superfly splash from one of the Usos to the Revival, and they were doing the Roman Reigns tribute with doing the whole bit that he would do for the Superman punch to go along with it, and Team SmackDown picks up the victory. Keyword that for the beginning of the show, to go along with it, because that was kind of the talking point throughout a portion of the night. And I do like how Xavier Woods keeps pointing it out every time they make mention to a clean sweep on social media side. They would always say clean sweep by Team Raw, and then Xavier Woods would just follow with a 6-1. Apparently there was a rumor mill going around, and yes, this is Dave Meltzer putting it out there, so take it with a grain of salt to go along with everything on that one. And just like any rumor you hear, take it with a grain of salt from any of them until something actually does come out. on WWE side of everything, that apparently Team Raw was supposed to win that match, but they didn't get it through the full grapevine of what the full story was, which is a massive oversight on their part, that someone forgot to say, hey, everybody in the red shirts win all the matches tonight, including this one. Because that's what we saw throughout the rest of Survivor Series. So they started off Survivor Series with a 5-on-5 elimination with the 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series elimination tag match. It's a lot to say, and in this one would be on the women's side for Team SmackDown. It was Naomi, it was Asuka, it was I am just losing everything right now on this point. It was Sonya Deville, Carmella, and it was Mandy Rose, who was going to be the 5th member. They did show this on the pre-show. The Raw side was Mickie James, Nia Jax, who came out to massive boos, Tamina, and it was Sasha Banks and Bayley, who ended up being on the Raw side because they did a pre-show bit backstage where, well, Ruby Riott and Natalya were not getting along, so Alexa Bliss kicks them off the team, and they add Bayley and Sasha Banks to the team. This match was actually kind of good. And obviously not knowing that Sasha and Bayley were going to be into the match as well, kind of plays up on all that side of everything to go along with it. I thought the match itself was actually a pretty good match. Nia Jax not doing much in the match, but making sure that she was able to get nuclear heat every time she was on camera. Always either pointing to the fist or barely doing anything in the match, just little subtle things, and then all of a sudden, massive boos will be going around. Tamina immediately eliminates Naomi with a super kick, followed up by a really quick roll up by Carmella to eliminate Tamina inside of that time frame to go along with it. At this point in time, it was kind of a back and forth to a certain degree, where they did get rid of Mickie James decently. They didn't get rid of Mickie James that quickly, but it was decently quickly that Mickie James does get eliminated inside the match, while Bayley and Sasha Banks basically do most of the eliminations for Team SmackDown or Team Raw. Bayley gets rid of Carmella via the Bayley to Belly. Then Sasha Banks gets rid of Mandy Rose with I believe the Banks statement to go along with that. Bayley actually eliminates herself and Sonya Deville with a Bayley to Belly outside the ring, and both of them get counted out. So it leaves it down to Asuka and Sasha Banks and Nia Jax, and you have a very good back and forth throughout the entire time. You also got a very good section throughout the entire match itself, where just people were doing certain things throughout the entire bit. Like Nia Jax ran into the post, as I believe who dodged it? Yeah, Sonya Deville dodged a post shot or a corner shot, so Nia Jax ran into the post, and Asuka immediately kicks Nia Jax, and she's celebrating on the outside of the ring, and just out of nowhere Sasha Banks shows up with a Meteora in there. There were some good spots in here, and it kind of went into the overall storytelling of the night as well, especially for the Survivor Series matches. The Team Raw people just weren't getting along, but they end up winning in the end. And you saw that in the men's side as well, even more so. But you did see it on the women's side to go along with it. So the ending of this match comes up because you have a very good back and forth between Sasha Banks and Asuka. Sasha Banks goes up to what looks like is going to be a frog splash. Nia Jax throws Sasha Banks off of the top rope and into Asuka, who put in the Asuka lock. Sasha ends out tapping out. Nia Jax immediately gets back in the ring. She does 3 leg drops as Asuka was still down on the ground, doing 3 massive leg drops, Samoan drop to pick up to pin Asuka and pick up the victory. Nuclear heat on Nia Jax. They're definitely going somewhere with this. I don't know if it's going to lead into a Nia Jax versus Becky Lynch match at some point in time when Becky's coming back, or how they're going to go about with it. But we had some interesting story takes throughout the entire show. So this leaves us to the next match, which was Seth Rollins going up against Shinsuke Nakamura. And, you know, in all fairness, this was actually a really good match. Again, without them really telling the story narrative of... They barely told a story narrative going into Survivor Series that Raw really needed to sweep everything. They do get a little bit backstage where you have Stephanie McMahon and Baron Corbin talking with Paige and Shane McMahon, where Stephanie kind of emphasizes it there, but that was like, it would have been a little bit more interesting if they would have set this up for a potential of it happening, and kind of getting you more into it. It's like, oh, is Raw actually going to sweep? Are they not going to sweep? Instead of kind of having to set that up at some point in the show here, which is what they kind of did before going into the Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura match. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this match. It was a lot of good back and forth. I would have preferred Shinsuke going over in this match, on my side of everything, but I thought it was a solid back and forth. It wasn't overly great by any stretch of the imaginations. It was far from what both of these guys could possibly do, at least in my mind, in the terms of in-ring storytelling, everything to go along with that. It does have a very good, like I said, just very good back and forth. You do have Shinsuke hitting the Kinshasa, kind of, where he hits the running knee to the back of Seth Rollins, or to the neck and the back of the head area. That gets a 2 count, but he didn't do his full thing where he did the full run, everything to go along with that, to go the pose, so it's not fully the Kinshasa, so technically it's not kicking out of a finisher. Technically. Only technically, though, on that side of it. And then they have a good section of back and forth between the two of them. You do get to see Shinsuke kind of going back to a little bit of the strong style stuff, some of the strong style stuff where he's just kicking Seth Rollins around throughout the ring. Seth Rollins fighting back throughout that as well. We did not get any interference from Dean Ambrose in this match to go along with it, and the ending came where Shinsuke was going for the full Kinshasa, misses. Seth Rollins counters that into a stomp to pick up the victory. A good match. Probably wasn't exactly what most people were kind of expecting here, but then it kind of went into the narrative of the night that Raw was just picking up victory after victory after victory after victory. So this brings us to the next match, actually, which is another one of those matches. It was AOP going up against The Bar with The Big Show. And I'll keep this portion quick because I didn't actually see it on the live thing itself, so it shows how relevant I think this guy personally is. Apparently on camera, Enzo Amore stands up on the camera side and then gets himself ejected because he started causing a scene. I didn't see it while watching the live feed, so shows how important I think he is to go along with it, because I was pretty much focused in on the match, which I thought was a decent enough match. It wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. Again, decent enough back and forth, and that you were kind of expecting something with Drake Maverick being out there in the Big Show. You do get that where it looks like Sheamus and Cesaro were going to be picking up the victory after a brogue kick from Sheamus to one of the members of the AOP, but Drake Maverick puts his foot on the rope. Cesaro starts chase, or was it Sheamus or Cesaro, or it was Sheamus starts chasing Drake Maverick. Big Show doesn't move, but Drake Maverick runs right into Big Show. He chokes Drake Maverick up on the ropes, and then Drake Maverick proceeds to, well, let's just, in the better terms of it, he wet his pants. It was not done all that well to go along with, It's far from McMahon wetting his pants a long time ago, where they actually did a good job with that one. This one did not come off all that well. As Cesaro, Sheamus, and Big Show were kind of just laughing at Maverick, we go back into the ring. The AOP hit the the neckbreaker power bomb that they've been using as of late to pick up the victory in what was probably the most underwhelming match of the night. Let's be fair with that. We'll be 100% fair with that. It was probably the most underwhelming match of the night. Up next, this was far from underwhelming. It was Buddy Murphy going up against Mustafa Ali for the Cruiserweight title, and you see that smile on my face because this was a good match. Great stuff from them, even to the point of you kind of got the traditional main roster crowd that doesn't necessarily care too much for the 205 Live stuff, but they made these guys start chanting 205 after the after everything that they were doing, especially a Spanish fly off of the announce table out to the floor from Mustafa Ali to Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy himself, this is one thing I do like, that that the heels do not stray away from high-flying maneuvers, even though they're heels, and it's considered a babyface thing to do to fly on those ones. So I actually do like that side of everything. Mustafa Ali working really good in this match as the babyface, trying to dethrone Buddy Murphy, and just Buddy Murphy having control most of the time, but then just losing a little bit of control here and there. It looked like we were about to get the reverse 450 or the 054 from Mustafa Ali, but Buddy Murphy shoves him off of the ring apron and actually making it look like he hits his head on to the ring apron to go along with it. This does eventually lead to a good back and forth where Mustafa Ali does counter a Murphy's Law at some point to get to also get a close pinfall, but eventually Buddy Murphy hits the Murphy's Law, picks up the victory, and keeps the Cruiserweight title. Excellent match. But again, Cruiserweights are showing that they can really work with the main roster side if they really want to push them in some way, shape, or form. I thought this came off really good. So this brings us to the 5-on-5 match with the men's side, SmackDown versus Raw. And this was a good match. It was an interesting match in the terms of booking. Mainly the Raw guys looked strong throughout this entire match. That much we go through again, and it was again another story beat of Raw's guys were not getting along in any way, shape, or form. But in the end, it didn't really matter. We'll leave it at that. Everybody brawls kind of at the beginning when Strowman and McIntyre can't figure out who's going to be the person taking control right off the bat. So you have them brawling and Team Raw brawling, and then all of a sudden SmackDown joins them for some odd reason at that point. This does eventually lead to Strowman getting taken out by Team SmackDown. They beat him down a bit. They put him on the announce table, and Shane McMahon does his flying elbow through the announce table to take out Strowman for a little while. Inside of here, the one glaring thing was Samoa Joe getting eliminated really quickly in this match. So the match starts off as a house of fire once once the bell rings. It was Drew McIntyre and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe hits or goes for the coquina clutch on a couple of occasions. He gets it locked in. Drew McIntyre gets out. He gets it locked in again, but Drew McIntyre gets out one more time and then hits him with a big Claymore kick. 1, 2, 3. There goes Samoa Joe. It was really quick and kind of shocking, and kind of hoping that Samoa Joe's not injured again. To go along with it, because that is the only indication I could really go with of a quick elimination there, is that Samoa Joe may be injured again. Hope that's not the case on that side of everything, which looked like it was also the case in the tag match earlier in the pre-show. I forgot to mention that Lucha House Party got member Kalisto looked like he was had his knee injured. Rumor is that was just an angle to get Grand Metalik into the match a little bit, because they did do a bit, and I liked how Corey Graves pointed out. I was like, wait a minute, if it's Freebird rule, you pick two and that's how you stick throughout the whole match, you can't replace it. But apparently the ref allowed for the replacement. So hopefully that was just an angle as well. Hopefully Kalisto's not fully injured as well. Hopefully Samoa Joe's not the one to go along with it, is not injured as well, and they were just coming up with a hot start to the match itself. But eventually, like I said, we do get the brawling between Team Raw, even to the point of Finn kicking Drew in the face because he wouldn't tag in Finn Balor. So he tags himself in and then kicks Drew in the face. This does eventually lead to him getting eliminated. Eventually after, who did it? I forget who actually eliminated. Well, yeah, it was Rey Mysterio after a frog splash. 619 into a frog splash. Rey Mysterio picked up the victory over Finn Balor. Drew beats up Finn a little bit and then throws him out of the ring. So we're going to continue on with that storyline. Like, this has been the interesting thing between Survivor Series. And I've kind of recognized this. Even though it's a major for pay-per-view, it's not a pay-per-view that you necessarily end feuds. It's a pay-per-view where you begin feuds to go along with it. That and the Royal Rumble, those are two pay-per-views where you begin feuds more than end them, while WrestleMania and SummerSlam usually end feuds more times than they start feuds. That's kind of what I've taken through the major four pay-per-views on that side of everything. And you do get those little bits in there. I know Drew and Finn have been kind of feuding a little bit here and there, but this kind of probably brings it to the forefront a little bit more on that one. Dolph Ziggler gets eliminated by Shane McMahon via Coast to Coast, which I actually loved what they did here. Where Shane McMahon's like, Miz tags him in and is like, you should go for the coast to coast, you should go for the coast to coast, and you just see Shane like, what? And then he gets up there, does it, pins Dolph, and then they have him look like he's going to do it again to Drew McIntyre. And Shane just gives a exhausted look on his face, but then goes for it. He jumps and Strowman destroys him. Strowman just swats him out of the air. And that was basically it then. Strowman kind of went on a tear afterwards. So Drew McIntyre looks extremely strong at the beginning, but Strowman looks strong towards the end of the match, where he basically within about a minute and a half destroys everybody when he comes back in. He starts it off with Jeff Hardy, power slam, Rey Mysterio next with another power slam. He runs over Shane McMahon on the outside, but Miz gets eliminated with a power slam as well, leaving only Shane left, which he does the come on, which made me worried that they were going to do something that prevented like it just ending at that point, where maybe Shane's going to actually fight back. But no, it was running drop kick. Drew McIntyre, and then he runs back to the corner, which you thought was like, okay, someone's just going to tag in. Nope, they don't tag in. Strowman runs Shane down, power slam, 1, 2, 3, and done. And while the celebration was going on, Baron Corbin does attack Braun Strowman to kind of solidify that feud going down here in the very near future as well. Overall, I thought it was a pretty decent match, and it kind of started working towards that overall storyline that they've been going throughout the show, that Raw just wins, apparently, on this one. They just win every single thing. Which brings us to what probably was the match of the night, or at least the most talked about match of the night. Though the two main events, let's leave it at that. The two main events of the show were absolutely fantastic and well done all around. That I'm not going to lie. All of them were well done all around. So first one was Ronda Rousey going up against Charlotte Flair. what can you say? They made this match look extremely good, but just look like a fight. It wasn't like a smooth style wrestling match. They made it look like a fight and a brawl throughout the entire match, even to the point that you had Charlotte elbow Ronda right in the mouth, which caused her like to bite her cheek or something like that, and caused some blood to come out, making Ronda look extremely good on that side, having to fight back after getting busted open in the match, and just the overall beating that both of them gave each other in the match came off really good. And as it was kind of going to that crescendo, they made it look like it's like, oh, is there something wrong with Charlotte's arm? Because she gets out of an armbar, and she's just an armbar attempt and slides out of the ring, and it looks like she's holding her arm. Maybe something got messed up. She breaks the count, goes back outside. Ronda goes to charge, and before we get to that, because there's also before we fully get to that portion, there was also a really good spot in there with Charlotte and Ronda, where Ronda was like firing up, turns around and eats a spear that looked absolutely fantastic, and it was a very close near fall to go along with it. Probably one of the best near falls of the match. But at the end, where Ronda was charging Charlotte on the outside, and then lo and behold, when Charlotte gets back on camera, she has a kendo stick and just waylays Ronda Rousey, and then basically goes to town using the kendo stick in the chair, and the beatdown was on at that point, and the crowd was eating it up. It was really weird on that side of everything, based off of the crowd liking that whole aspect of it, because to the most part, Ronda's been pretty much a babyface throughout the entire thing, but the crowd was eating this one up. Charlotte, of course, giving that like nasty look throughout the entire bit. Looked like she was gonna leave, but there was a chair left in the ring. She dashes back in, hits natural selection onto the chair, and then she puts the chair over Ronda Rousey's neck, beats up the refs a bit too, and then stomps on the chair, leaving Ronda laying injured. And it looked absolutely fantastic. And it was definitely a feud starter. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Monday Night Raw here. The interesting aspect was the entire time while Ronda gets back up, the crowd is still chanting for Becky. And as she's leaving, and even looks back to the crowd, they start booing Ronda, which is an interesting little bit. Maybe plays off of the promo that she did on Monday. I don't know how to go along with it, but it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do and what they have Ronda do tonight, because apparently Ronda's going to be on Raw, and this will probably be going out after Raw goes on the air at some point, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with her. They should have her come out on a house of fire and want to destroy everybody and try to get Stephanie in some way, shape, or form, give her another match with Charlotte, and in some way, shape, or form. I absolutely love the match, love the angle going into it. It'll be interesting to see when they decide to do this. Hopefully it's a TLC or Royal Rumble one, because more than likely they should still be going with a Becky Ronda match at some point in time, which you would imagine would be happening at WrestleMania at this point in time. So I would imagine they are doing something with Charlotte and Ronda at this point to kind of get to that down the line. To go along with it for when Becky does come back. And hopefully they do something more with Becky than just have her leave and then come back when her injury is done. There's a piece of me that kind of hopes this is like, soon as they clear her for concussion, because based off her character, as soon as the concussion gets out of the way, she should be like, it doesn't matter about the broken nose, house on fire, coming out there and wanting to destroy everybody as well. To go along with it. It leaves a very interesting area and a very interesting way of going down the line, and where they're going to be going with these particular matches going into basically the major pay-per-view season, with Royal Rumble coming up, and then of course WrestleMania coming up in April as well. So be interesting to see what they do with it and see where they decide to go with everything. So this brings us to the main event, which was Daniel Bryan going up against Brock Lesnar, and oh man, they worked us hard. They worked everybody to a T in this match, and it was fan-flippin-tastic. It was fan-flippin-tastic. Oh, the beginning of the match where Daniel Bryan's kind of taunting Lesnar, but then Lesnar catches him, and he delivers that first German suplex, and that first German suplex looked so scary that, like, the crowd's like, uh-oh. And then you are beginning to think, are they going to be doing nothing more than a squash match? Or did Brock Lesnar just injure Daniel Bryan, or potentially give him a concussion or something on that one? And then you get the second German suplex, and then you get more suplexes, and you're like, are they really going to go this route? And then he does an F5, making you think he's going to do it. But no, Brock's overconfident and pulls up Daniel Bryan and leaves him lying on the ground. He eventually goes to him. He kicks him in the head. He goes to pick up Daniel Bryan by the head, gets kicked in the head, then gets kicked in the head again. He then picks up Daniel. Then he catches Daniel Bryan's leg on the third attempt, picks him up, goes for the F5. Referee's in the way. So as he's going for it, Daniel Bryan kind of clips the referee, but lands on his feet. All of a sudden, referee's not looking. And I love how Daniel Bryan just goes like, he's not looking, and then kicks Brock Lesnar straight below the belt, and then does a running knee for what, that place went absolutely crazy, thinking that maybe Daniel Bryan would pull off a quick victory like that after gaining the advantage. Brock Lesnar kicks out of the running knee and sells it masterfully. And Daniel Bryan's in control, even to the point of doing the stomps to Brock Lesnar, which looked absolutely brutal. And you have a decent back and forth where Daniel Bryan's kind of just catching Brock. He's working over the knee, trying to chop him down, but Brock maybe gets a suplex in or a little bit of a punch to go along with it. Looks like he catches Daniel Bryan during a dive attempt, goes for the javelin into the ring post, but Brock runs into the ring post, and then eventually he catches Daniel Bryan again and runs him into the ring post a couple of times, but Daniel Bryan continually fights back and hits the running knee, gets a 2 count yet again, but goes straight into the yes lock. And the look on Brock Lesnar's face, it sounds preposterous for Daniel Bryan to potentially tap out Brock Lesnar, but that look on Brock's face and everything is like, is this actually going to happen? Is this actually going to happen? Now, you kind of knew that the result was not in doubt in any way, shape, or form. It was going to eventually be Brock picking up the victory with an F5. He fights out of the yes lock, but then Daniel Bryan starts pounding like on the side of Brock's head, which allows him to lock it back in again, making you kind of think it's like, wait a minute, they're really going to do it? He powers out one more time, hits the F5, picks up the victory, and yet again, something with Survivor Series brings out the working shoes of Brock Lesnar, because he seems to do so much more. Or maybe it's just an aspect of the people he was working with at those times. But when it comes to the Survivor Series matches, you had last year's with AJ, you had this year's with Daniel Bryan. When he wants to sell, it's just fantastic. And it's one of those few times it's like, this is what he can do. He's great at it. And when he really wants to really go out there and get to working with everybody, it can be really, really good. And that's what this was here. It was absolutely fantastic. The last 2 matches on the show were great. There's, like, the matches themselves were entertaining. The booking decisions of having Raw, quote unquote, sweep. Because apparently the pre-show doesn't count, or that's what WWE's telling us now, is that the pre-show just does not matter at all. at this point in time. So overall, I enjoyed the show. The matches themselves were really good. The booking decisions were a little bit wonky, yeah. But overall was an enjoyable show. And it'll be interesting to see what narratives we come out of this. If we get some decent narratives that actually come through this, either like Shane McMahon kind of flipping out that SmackDown, at least on the main show itself, lost all the matches on there, and maybe that's his catalyst for a heel turn or something like that. You have stuff that would be going for Raw and SmackDown side for the future in the terms of storytelling. It'll be interesting to see where they go with this, and it will be truthfully telling where with how good this show potentially is based off of the storylines that come out of it, and if anything good does come out of it to go along with it. So we'll see how everything plays off on that side. Overall, I enjoyed the show. It wasn't the greatest show. It obviously wasn't the greatest show that it could have possibly have been, but overall it was still enjoyable. And I think that's as much as we can usually ask out of it, is to have enjoyed the show, which I did do. So with that being said, everybody, peace out. Take care. I hope you guys enjoyed everything, and have a great rest of your day.